Have there been any decisions you've had to make where you've cut something that you didn't want to, or you had to make a hard decision?
So this isn't a difficult thing at all. If anything, it's the opposite. It's the easiest thing in the world. When Ozzy died, the news broke on a Tuesday. Obviously, our cover comes out on a Wednesday. Instantly, it was just like, scrap tomorrow's cover. We have to do an Ozzy cover.
There's a lot of bands that quite recently have got big again, or have come back, or are hitting new heights, like Sleep Token. That resurgence in rock, does that help Kerrang?
It is mad just how huge and popular the scene is. Like you mentioned Ghost of Sleep Token, but you look at Spirit Box, you look at Bad Omens, you look at Turnstile, you look at Not Loose. Like Deftones being huge now, Limp Bizkit being huge now, Korn being bigger than it's ever been. It's way more accessible than it's ever been.
The first question for the day then is, how did you get started in the music industry, and I guess in journalism?
I did journalism at uni, first and foremost. I remember, maybe not the first day, but really early on in the course, they were like, everyone get Twitter, everyone start a blog. That's the advice we can give you. And so we all went away and did that. And I started like a music blog, just writing about music that I was into, and I can't remember really what it was, just album reviews and just gig reviews and maybe just opinions or whatever. And then someone got in touch with me on Twitter, saying, "Oh, you know, we see you write about metal. Would you like to write about metal for us?" That guy his name was Raz. He used to run Thrash Hits website. And I started, and he was just like, "Yeah, obviously that's amazing. Why wouldn't I want to do this?" I just started writing album reviews for them, a few interviews for them, and then that just suddenly became, yeah, you the more you sort of write about stuff, people see your name around, and then I started writing for like There Goes the Fear and Bring the Noise, The National Student, and stuff like that. And again, it's all free, but it's all experience sort of stuff. And then, yeah, and I ran the culture section on the uni newspaper, etc., and stuff like that. And again, it's just building up that network of PRs that I still talk to now, which is wild when you think about how long ago that was. And then, yeah, from then I moved to London after I graduated, got a job at a food magazine, started still writing for free, just but also like going to any gig I could, writing album reviews, talking to any band, meeting any PR and whatever I could. And then off I went. I mean, it's sort of, and then from then I went to Front Magazine, to Metal Hammer, to Kerrang. When
you were getting those gigs, were you getting guest list, or you having to buy lots of tickets?
A bit of both. I remember the first time I got a guest list to a festival, it was a huge moment. That was Sonisphere 2011, I think. When the Big Four played it. I was cultural editor of the uni paper, and Adam Seguir, who used to do PR for Sonisphere, sort of said, "I can give you a review ticket if you want." And I'd pretty much, this was in my last year of uni. I'd graduated by this point, but I was like, yeah, sure, fine. And yeah, that was suddenly, it's like, I've made it. I'm in like the inner sanctum. I'm in the guest bar. This is incredible, And then, yeah, but before that, yeah, it was a bit of buying tickets. Like when I was working, I was working in kitchens when I was like 16, 17 or whatever. And all my money just went on gig tickets, festival tickets. I'd go to Download, I'd go to Leeds Festival, I'd go to anything I possibly could. Like growing up in Lincoln, there wasn't a whole like rock scene there in terms of live music, so it would be like every other weekend. So you're traveling to Leeds, you're traveling to Nottingham, you're traveling to Sheffield to go to these shows. Queuing in the snow for 5 hours to get on the front row for Slipknot. These sort of things. But yeah, it was just sort of, that's what you do as a music fan, isn't it? That's where your money goes. That's where your passion lies. That's just what you do.
How did the job at Front Magazine come about?
It's sort of weirdly, I remember the exact moment I saw the job advert. I was at 2000 Trees Festival, 2012, the year it absolutely hammered it down. I don't know if you were there that year, but it was mud like I've never seen before. I remember being sat in my tent and just like scrolling on my phone, and there was like a journalism job email thing that goes out every week, or whatever. And there was an advert for looking for a sub editor. And at the time, I was working as a sub at the food magazine, and I was like, "This is amazing! Yeah, I can do this." And I've got all this portfolio of writing about music. Job's good and sort of thing. But the job expired that day, and I was in a tent at the festival, and it was like, "Shit, what do I do? What do I do?" But it turned out through basically going to gigs all the time in London and meeting various people. I knew someone who knew someone that worked at front and basically got me their email. I was like, sorry, I'm late. On the Monday after the festival, here's my CV, here's my experience, blah, blah, blah. And then, got an interview and that was it. I think it was that weird sort of amalgam of I'm into music, I'm into alternative culture that the magazine does, but also I can do the job you're asking for. Like, because a sub-editor is a sort of very specific skill. And I don't know for sure, but I don't know how many people were just applying for the job because they wanted to work there rather than actually could be a sub.
Can you explain then what specifically a sub-editor does?
Yeah, it's not the most glamorous gig in the world. Like, it is, generally speaking, like, the copy will come in, it'll get edited, then it'll get, the designer will lay out the magazine and basically it's a sub's job to sort of go through the copy, fact check it, legal check it, spell check it, etc. But also edit it until it fits on the page, because writers being writers will always write too much, and it's just making it fit and still actually makes sense, which is easier said than done sometimes. But it's something that stays with you.
Was that a big learning experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was wild, really. I mean, I remember walking out of the lift used to go straight out. You walk out of the lift and you're straight in the office. I remember walking out from a job interview, or walking in for my job interview. And there's like metal on the stereo, there's posters all over the walls, there's like a beer fridge, there's a Jägermeister machine, there's like skate decks everywhere, clothes everywhere, just stuff. It looked like a teenage boy's bedroom, really. But it was just like coming from a more corporate side of things. It was like, this is what a working office can be like. This is bonkers. And then you and that was sort of the biggest, like, not the biggest learning thing, but it was like, whoa, like, this is I didn't realize, it could be like this. And this is exactly what you wanted to do. I was 23, I think, at the time. And it was, just the most, like, it's like, when Wizard of Oz, it goes from black and white to color. It's like, whoa, this is what working magazine's like. And I remember, like, my first week there, it was like, I think within the space of a week, I'd interviewed Deftones and gone to like the James Bond premiere or something. It was just like, this is exactly what you've wanted to do forever. And and it just sort of kept going from there, because the job eventually evolved from being just the sub to, like, I ran the website. I was like on de facto online editor, and I wrote the vast majority of music content as well.
I mean, I remember the front office being just really cool. Like, it was the first, I guess it was the first company that, like, UPRAWR really worked with or did things with, like, back in, I guess it was 2011, 2012, 2013.
Is it every Thursday at the Purple Turtle, was it?
That was London.
I've got the scars, yeah.
And I remember it just being sort of cooler than everything else. And it's sort of remembered a little bit now as a lad mag, but at the time it absolutely wasn't viewed like that. And this is me getting off topic now, but I don't remember who I was sending them to. It literally could have been you. But every month, because we had the an advert in the magazine every month.
Right.
And every month we'd get a message being like, can you send the magazine? And I'd send some, like, I was like 22. So I'd send something that was completely ridiculous and inappropriate that I thought was hilarious.
Sure.
And I'd get this message back being like, ha, yes, you're very funny.
But we can't print this.
Can we actually get something that you can print? And then after about the fourth time, like the fourth month, I got this message, and it was just like, it was like a few days before I'd usually get the one asking for the advert. And it was just like, we're very aware that you're funny. This month we're on a deadline. We don't need the joke.
Just send the proper one first.
And we were like, okay, we're going to stop sending twat things, because obviously it's annoying. But we had a really great relationship with Front Magazine in general, like as the club, and we went to all the parties and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
How did it affect the sort of magazine space when Front went?
I don't really know. It's a bit sick. I mean, at the time, I was like not privy to conversations in terms of in hindsight, you could probably look back and go, oh yeah, the magazine was clearly in trouble. Like, you just, now that you know these things, but at the time you're just sort of like, well, this is, I've got my, this is an incredible job. We can all do silly things, Like, it was a bit like, not answer question, but sort of going back to like the working side of things. it was a sort of like a bunch of mates in a room, and a magazine happened at the end of the month, and that was it. You know, there was just, we did stupid things. Whereas I remember we did a feature where we ate shower gel to see if it tasted like it smelled or something, and it was like, oh, it's mint, you know, it's mint shower gel. Does it taste like mint? Oh, it's grapefruit. Does it taste like whatever? And that ended with at least one person being sick that I can remember. And then I've just got this vision as well. We got sent this super spicy chocolate one time that would mess you up if you ate it. And like, there's just got this vision of, I think we ran a picture of it, of that the editor just drinking paint just to try and numb his mouth. And it was just like this, you know, this wouldn't fly in a normal office, you know. But again, it wasn't a normal magazine. It wasn't a normal way of working, which, and you wonder why it closed to an extent. But in terms of like how it affected the sector, I think like I don't know, because I think that whole Lads Mad thing was circling the drain anyway at that point. And even though, like you say, I don't think was necessarily as part of it as Nuts and Zoo and whatever, I think weirdly, I think there's almost if you removed certain aspects of the magazine, clearly there is a space for a magazine that is tattoos, skateboarding, alternative music.
Yeah.
You know,
because that's what it was to me. It was more of an absolute all-round lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it was just that there were girls in there as well. But it was the lifestyle aspect of it that made it so cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it was sort of, you know, it had all the streetwear stuff. It had all the skateboarding stuff. It had all this. Just, yeah, it was a cool looking magazine.
I mean, from our point of view, it seemed to affect sort of the alternative culture when it left for sort of like two reasons. One being that all the advertising in other magazines went up. Like, right, I don't know if that's like it's genuine, but like from our point of view, looked as though it like led with the pricing. And the second that closed, every other magazine in the space like doubled the prices.
Maybe that's why I went under. It wasn't charging enough.
Yeah, maybe it literally was. Like, everything got more expensive when we suddenly, because like UPRAWR at that point was advertising in like every magazine, like every music magazine that there was. Like Kerrang, it wasn't weekly because that was expensive doing it weekly. But we definitely were at least once a month, and everything seemed to go through the roof the second front closed. But also there was like this really rich bedroom culture of like company, like with clothing companies, like everyone that was cool had a clothing company, like and that was because I think it was called the Essentials. Ads that were like really cheap, and there were lots of like all day festivals like Hit the Deck, and I think that came back, but like, lots of stuff like that. And when front went, that it felt as though everything in that little scene went with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether front can, you know, sort of be the pillar that held that all up. But yeah, it was wild at that time when you think about it. Between like 2011 and 2014, I say just how many all-dayers there were, just how many, I say bedroom fashion companies were. It was, no, I never really thought about it, but when you look back on it, it was this proper like DIY industry just sort of pops up out of nowhere. Yeah. Just kids being creative and just doing cool stuff.
So when that did close then, what did you do? I'm guessing you were made redundant?
Yeah, I remember being made redundant for the first of two times in my life. And then basically I just sort of went freelance for a bit, trying to get my head around things and how to pay rent in London without a full-time job. Which is,
did it affect your perception of what was going on and whether you could make money in that scene if magazines that were that big were closing?
I don't know. I didn't really think about it being like, oh my God, is this a stable, you know, job? Because you're just like, we weren't the first magazine to close, you know, sort of thing. It's like these things just happen. But because I knew enough people elsewhere that were able to offer me work, it was just sort of a bit of a recalibration in terms of, all right, okay, I'll just focus on writing now. Like, I met, you know, through people that I'd met up front, they were like giving me contacts of people to do work elsewhere. So I was like writing I did some work for MTV. I did some work for Metal Hammer, obviously. I did some work for a few other places now. I can't remember. I was a Terrorizer. But Hammer was like the one that gave me most regular work just because I knew Merlin, who was then online editor at Hammer.
So did that become a sort of full-time job just naturally, or?
No, not naturally at all. I mean, it was, I remember I was like writing for them, for the website and the magazine for about 3 months maybe. And I remember seeing Merlin on a night out. I was out in Big Red in London. I was out with my mates. He was out with his mates. I don't know whether he remembers this at all. But I remember seeing him and so I went over to say hello and stuff like that. And he was just like, "Oh mate, I'm getting a promotion. You know, the online editor's job is going to be available. You should apply for it," sort of thing. And him knowing that I did all the digital stuff up front. And so yeah, I went and applied for the job. I think there was 2 rounds of interviews, but yeah. And then that was it. They said that was April 2014, I think. But yeah, it was just bananas.
Before you got that, when you're freelance, how many jobs do you have to get in like a month to be able to live off that?
Thankfully, rents then weren't as high as they are now, obviously, but it was not a comfortable living, I suppose. Just only because realistically, I was still quite green to it. Like if I was heavily reliant on 2 realistically magazines to give me work, whereas you really need to sort of, if you're doing freelance full time, you can't just rely on one publication.
And is it them reaching out to you saying there's a story we want you to cover, or is it you coming up with the things that you want to do and pitching it to them?
It was a bit of both. I think some stuff was, have you heard about this band? I think we should do something on this band. And then it's yes or no from the commissioning editor. Or we need someone to interview so-and-so, can you do it? We need someone to go to this gig, can you do it? And I've always sort of, in that position, it was just like say yes to everything, because one thing will lead to something else. And at that point, especially because I'd just been made redundant, I needed the money. Yeah, I'd go anywhere and do anything. Realistically, looking back, I probably lost money on some days. I reviewed a gig for Terrorizer. I think it cost me more to get to the gig and back than I was getting paid to review the show. But at the same time, it was, you go and you meet, and hopefully you meet someone there that can do something. Like, as I'm sure you're aware, with everyone you've spoken to on here, music industry is very connected. Everyone knows everyone. And so when you're new to this, or especially if you've been thrown into a pretty crap situation, you need to just go and meet everyone.
Does it affect the pay with the size of the band? Because if you're going to review, like, I don't know, the Sabbath show,
yeah,
presumably that brings more people to read the article than if you're reviewing a small band.
Yeah, but you don't get paid like that. Like you'd get paid for either it's a word rate or a job rate, really. Like it's not nowhere I've worked and nowhere I've commissioned for has been this will drive more traffic, so we'll pay you more, because that's a pretty dirty way of doing things, and it just means that small bands will never get covered because no one will want the pittance you'll give them. So it's always like you've got a 500-word review, it's this much money. You've got a 1,000-word feature, it's this much money, regardless of what band is.
So when you started at Metal Hammer, then that was full time and that was doing online.
Yeah.
What was the sort of day-to-day of your specific role?
I guess a lot of commissioning, really, because at the time when I joined Metal Hammer, it was owned by Team Rock, and they were throwing money around, and it meant there was quite a large team. There was like a separate news team to the online editors. There was because the company owned Metal Hammer, Classic Rock, and Prog magazines. Each one had its own online editor, and so it was just about commissioning features and writing features for the website, really, which was a lot of it's sort of menu because you could sort of dictate what you could commission bands on features or features on bands that you like, but also it was the first time I'd been in that position. Like up front, everything was written in house pretty much. Because it was a close knit team and everyone. It was a monthly magazine. You just had the time to write everything. Whereas online is obviously such a fast paced environment. Everything gets freelanced out, and so a lot of my day was just sort of, and also emails. Like realistically, the unglamorous side of all of this is your job. It just becomes sifting through your inbox.
I guess then, did you spend more time doing the emails and reviewing other people's work than you did?
Yes and no. I mean, at the same time, there was, like I say, there was a lot of fun to be had there. I mean, I think it was because there was a lot of money being sort of bandied around, but also opportunities coming. I think it was in the space of a month, I'd gone to Dublin to see Slipknot on the first date of their album tour. I think it was the .5 tour. Then I was on a cruise from Miami to Jamaica and back, which is like the 70,000 tons of metal cruise, which is like a heavy metal cruise with like 70 bands playing from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. Absolutely stupid. But it was amazing. But it was just like, looking back on it, it's like, and then at the end of that month, I was in Australia for 10 days for Soundwave Festival, like, which again was like, I was 20, you know, you're 24 and you're sort of like, how is this what I'm getting paid to do?
Is that because you're in charge, so you can just decide these are fucking sick, I'm going to be the guy that...
Not really, but I think because I was the online guy and we were like, we need online coverage for these, it was just sort of, don't worry, I'm willing to fall on this, this sort. Yeah, I'll do it. And that was, it was sort of a right place, right time kind of thing. Like similar with getting the front job, it's like I had the subbing experience, like getting the Hammer job, I had the online experience, and it all just sort of transfers over. But I say, looking back at it now, say getting basically 10 days, 12 days in Australia, you are just like, it's the best job in the world.
Yeah. Do you wish you could go back to those days?
I remember there was a time on that Australia trip, there was one night where we'd always go to the same bar every night. I can't remember the name of it. It was someone's name and then pizza by the slice. It was like a pizza bar. And for whatever reason, because all the artists would stay in town because there's no point in them flying home from Australia. And so there was one night where loads of bands were in the bar. You look around, there was like some guys from Slipknot were there. There was like Of Mice and Men playing pinball, I think. There was a jam band on stage. When you look over it, it's the guys from like Steel Panther and Exodus or something. And you sort of stood there like with a pint in your hand next to your boss. It's like, this is insane. This is exactly why you got into doing this. It's traveling the world and just loving music, and this is what it can do for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool position.
I mean, it's just, that's the sort of thing you'd want to go back to. Not so much the chaos of the work that's involved, but it is just like, you don't take it for granted at the time, but I think you just look back on it and go like, just one of the best nights you've ever had.
Was the Team Rock environment more corporate than front?
Yeah, in that it wasn't just a bunch of people in a room. Like there was a proper structure. There was a senior management team. There was a proper commercial team. There was a marketing team. It was a much bigger team. I think front was about 9 people. All in all, I think Team Rock's were like 50. It was a much bigger operation, and which just made things run a lot smoother, realistically. But it didn't mean, like I said, that it wasn't a very fun environment to work in, because again, no one gets into this job if they don't love music. It would be a very weird career choice if this wasn't what you wanted to do. And so every time, every night, everyone's going to the pub and chatting about music. Everyone's going to gigs. Everyone's going to listening sessions, doing whatever. Because it's what we live and breathe and what we've wanted to do our whole lives.
So did you leave that job, or was that when it went under?
Yeah, Team Rock went under just before Christmas, and which was a shit situation for everyone involved. Again, just like fun, we all went to the pub afterwards, as you do. But then the magazines got bought back by Future Publishing.
I actually remember that now you said it. It was like big news at the time that it was such a shit thing to happen at Christmas.
Yeah, it was. I think it was literally like a week before Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was, you've got people there with mortgages, with kids, with a lot riding on this job, like more than just me paying rent. And it came out of nowhere. No one knew it was coming. But luckily, like I say, Future bought the mags back, And then there was a bit of teething period where it was, I think, where they hadn't brought everyone back yet. Some people didn't want to go back for whatever reason. But yeah, then they basically offered me my job back. It was like, do you want to come? And it was like, obviously, because I wanted to work. You know, that was my job. I didn't want to leave in the first place. Yeah, I'll take my job back. But there was like 2 or 3 months of freelancing during that time.
Was that a sort of stressful time if there were less magazines that were doing rock and were in the music that you're in? Because
I think what I was doing when it went under, I did get some freelance work for Kerrang. I got some for Rock Sound. I got some for Noisy, and I picked up some editing work from more like corporate places.
Was there any worry that you were going to have to go and get the corporate job in it?
I don't think so. Just because there were always murmurings of it's coming back, right. And I think I was always like, well, fingers crossed that means me. And gradually it did. I was never sort of worried like, oh my God, I'm going to have to wear a suit to work and sell out. But it was just a bit like, what does this mean? But at the same time, like I say, it was everyone I was talking to about it, even if they weren't involved in the conversations, were like, it'll come back. It's too big not to come back.
What was the move then when you went to Kerrang?
Well, I said I'd gone back for, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe. And so I'd been at Hammer for, minus that little gap, for like 5 years. I just got, I sort of saw the job for Kerrang come up as digital editor. And obviously I was like online editor at Hammer, and it was just sort of like, I'm in a position now where it's like, not that I've done all I can here at Hammer or whatever, but it's, I just want to try a new challenge, do something else, etc., etc.
What's the difference between an online and a digital editor?
Very little, to be fair. I mean, I think it was, well, not little, but I mean, Kerrang was a lot more, or still is at the time, especially a lot more focus on, like, when it came to digital, it was a lot more social media stuff, a lot more, they put a lot more focus on video and things like that. But for realistically, the job was the same. But I just really liked, at the time especially, like where the culture of Kerrang and like where it was going. I think it was the bands they were covering and things like that before I joined, and still obviously while I'm here. But like I say, it was just sort of, I've been here for 5 years. I want a challenge. I want to see, again, it's just like saying yes to stuff. It's like, let's just go do that.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this episode, please give us a rating and review on Spotify or Apple. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a subscribe. It really, really helps the channel. It'll help us keep booking more guests and doing more podcasts. So let's get into it.
COVID changed the culture of like what Kerrang was immeasurably. Pre-COVID, it was a weekly magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was put paid to that. You couldn't, the music industry was just on shutdown. No one was releasing records. No one was touring, and people were being advised not to go to news agents. So it's quite hard to say, go and buy our magazine. And so Kerrang changed massively, and obviously became much more digitally focused or publication.
So is your job still mostly online, and then focus on the magazine as it approaches, or is it like a 3-month?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, my job covers everything. I mean, the magazine is just one part of what we do. Like, we do digital covers every week, every Wednesday. And so we do 50 digital covers a year. We give ourselves 2 weeks off for Christmas. And then 4 printed mags. But yeah, the day-to-day doesn't revolve around either being focused on print or being focused on digital. It's just a big holistic thing, because we also do so much social stuff, so much video stuff, and as an editor, it's overseeing everything and to make sure the tone's right, the bands we're covering are right, and that it's just the best we can possibly be.
So what's the sort of staffing structure? Is there a lot of people there? Is it?
I mean, like where we are in terms of like the company that owns Kerrang is quite large. I think our core team is nowhere near as big as it was with the weekly magazine, but we just have such a dedicated like core team of freelancers like in the UK, but also like around the world. I've got quite a big team in the States now.
With the like the physical side of it, have you still got in-house designers that are...
Again, because we're such a close-knit team, we all know what works and we all know what we want Kerrang to be, and because we're all very, very proud of it. That's also the thing, like going back to that, you wouldn't work in music if you didn't care about it. You wouldn't work in music journalism if you weren't proud of what you were creating. And we've all got a very sort of high standards, I guess. And yes, I was sort of going off on one, but yeah, Raw's favourite. Yeah, was just wanted to be the best it can be.
Is there more pressure now it's quarterly because you've got less opportunities to sort of get it right or to make the statements than when it was weekly, and with the online as well?
Not necessarily, just because everything that would, like, we're not covering any less than we normally would when it was a weekly magazine. I mean, it's just that the features we're running are now on Kerrang.com rather than in Kerrang magazine, which realistically, you think about it, it's arguably more pressure because more people are gonna read it. You know, you've got a basically potential infinite audience online than you do in a printed magazine. But no, I don't think there's any. So there's no sort of, oh, we've got to get it right. Obviously, you want it to be the best it can be. I think because we do quarterly, there is a sort of, it's the premium thing we do now. We only do 4, so it has to be the best. But I don't think there's any more pressure on it to be the best, because we wouldn't publish anything that we're not happy with.
Did you see a rise in the online figures, like how many people are looking and reading when the print went away?
Yeah, but I think obviously, I think it's not just sort of, you know, toot my own horn, but there was a massive spike when I joined, with all the experience I'd had at Hammer, but also there was a spike when the mag went, because we were suddenly publishing way more stuff online, but also because COVID happened. No one was going out, no one was doing anything, but bands were, even though they had nothing to promote because the albums were being delayed and tours were being delayed, were doing interviews. Like there was still stuff happening that we could talk about. And it was such a wild time when no one knew what was going on, but everyone was talking and wanting more information about what was happening. So yeah, it was looking back on it, it is wild. Yeah.
How do you decide like what makes the quarterly cover? Like, is there a criteria of what a band needs to be doing? Or
with the quarterly, I guess there is a bit more, because you've got to think basically with the digital covers, especially when I became editor, we put a lot more focus on putting new bands on the cover, young bands on the cover who've not had the chance before, because we want to support the scene, we want to champion these artists, and we know that getting a Kerrang cover means a lot to an artist, not just in terms of like an ego boost, but it'll mean you might get a better slot at a festival, you might get on a good support tour, you might get a better record deal out of it because of what a Kerrang cover means in the industry. But when it comes, and obviously that translates to print as well, but with print, you're also asking people to spend money. And with that, you are also sort of thinking, okay, what bands have larger fan bases? Who's more active right now? Who's doing this? Which is, it's just that's the way the magazines have always worked, really. But there is that consideration to take. There's less, you always putting, like, we've got Biffy Clyro on the cover. This issue coming. I'm not sure when this podcast is running, but it's coming out on mid-September. And then the issue before that, we had Green Day on the cover, and the issue before that, we had a Data Member on the cover. It's big bands in our world.
Is it you looking for them, or is it bands and PR and the people that they're working with that are coming to you being like, we've got shit going on and we want someone to feature it?
Yeah, but it's a bit of both. I mean, like in-house at Kerrang, we've all got pretty good radars of what's happening right now. Like we were like saying earlier, that we all go to gigs, we all go to festivals, we all know what bands are actually happening right now? Who's pulling the crowds? What isn't just a hype band or whatever? And there is a bit of, oh, I think this band is sick, let's put them on the cover. But also, like, so we do 50 covers a year, for example. That's basically, I've got into a position where I don't want to repeat a band in a year's space. So that's 50 opportunities for 50 bands we can put on the cover. And obviously, sometimes it's this band is sick, let's put on the cover, but also there's this album's amazing, it's their new album, we've got to do this, or they're about to announce a huge tour, let's do this. Like, some of it is tied into activity, but some of it is just, just the vibe is right there and then. But also, again, it is just about supporting the scene and just doing the right thing and being that place that champions young, exciting bands. But I think Kerrang's always done that. Like, when, I grew up buying Kerrang every week, it wasn't necessarily the legacy bands that excited me. It was what's happening right now that I was buying, on the cover, which, was new metal, where I was first started buying it and stuff like that. And that was what was really exciting. And it's not losing sight of that. It's what is the coolest thing happening this week that we can put on the cover.
Have there been any decisions you've had to make where you've cut something that you didn't want to, or you had to make a hard decision?
The only thing that's been, so this isn't a difficult thing at all. If anything, it's the opposite. It's the easiest thing in the world. Was the decision, like when Ozzy died, the news broke on a Tuesday. Obviously, our cover comes out on a Wednesday, and I think the news broke at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening, and so instantly it was just like, scrap tomorrow's cover. Like, we have to, we have to do an Aussie cover, and so Nick Ruskell, senior commissioning editor and biggest Sabbath fan on the planet, stayed up till like 6 a.m. writing the cover story, and then I was emailing on the phone to various photographers just about what we had available and what we could do to honor Ozzy, and it was all just coming together at like stupid o'clock in the morning, because it was just the right thing to do. It was, we're Kerrang and it's fucking Ozzy Osbourne. We have to. We need to put him on the cover, and I was really, really proud of what we were able to accomplish. And then off the back of that, we were able to raise like thousands of pounds for Cure Parkinson's as well for it, through the commemorative printed version of the cover.
Awesome. I think that's probably quite like an extreme version of something big happening.
Yeah, completely. I mean, say these things don't happen, thankfully, all the time, but it's just sort of.
What would the usual sort of timeline be for you deciding something and putting it together?
As in, saying we should put this on the cover and then it being on the cover?
Yeah.
It could sort of change. I mean, some things you have quite a long run at. A lot of it is dictated by availability of bands, really. Especially if you want to do a photo shoot before the band, either because say it's like a band in America and they don't all live in the same state.
Is it preferable to have like your own photo, or will you just take like the band's had a shoot?
Oh no, it's always preferable to do your own shoot. Like to have your own exclusive photos is always preferable, but that usually dictates the time frame you can do things in. It's either we can only do photos 2 days before your deadline. It's like, great. Or we have to do the photos 2 months before your deadline because that's the only time they're together. So it's quite malleable in that respect, but keeps you on your toes. Yeah.
With the physical sales, is that more people now buying individual magazines, or is that like a subscription and it turns up at people's house? Yeah,
I mean, we've got a pretty healthy subscriber base, but I mean, it goes into stores for a lot longer now. Like obviously, before it was in stores for a week and then replaced by another one. Now it sits in Smiths and newsagents and whatever for 3 months. So
do you think there's going to be sort of a resurgence with that physical format? Like, almost in the same way that vinyl come back around and people
Yeah,
attack
I do
tiny-
think so. Weirdly, I said this in an interview years ago that I think that's what's going to happen with magazines. That exactly the same way it's happened with vinyl is that if you're a music fan, or if you're a passive music fan, you enjoy music, you probably got a streaming subscription. If you love music, you're probably buying t-shirts, you're buying vinyl. Similarly, I think if you love reading about bands, or you enjoy certain artists and you want to read about them, then you probably follow them on Instagram and you read Kerrang.com. But if you really love it and you're invested in just reading, reading about your favorite artist, then you'll buy the magazine. It's just that sort of that connection some people have with just with their passion, really, but also that weirdly people wanting something tangible again. People, people don't want to be looking at screens all the time. There's so much out there about why that's bad for you, and I think what we're able to offer is the best music magazine in the world.
Just get
that in there. We're the best. Yeah.
So is that people more buying it from a newsagent, or is it people buying it online?
I mean, to say it's weird because I think we've also because we've got an online store as well, which usually sells out. To be fair, I think a lot of people buy Kerrang from overseas as well,
right?
Which is always exciting because I think that's the one thing.
Is the UK the biggest market?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, well, yes and no. I mean, online, no. America's bigger than the UK online, but in terms of sales, yes, definitely the UK is because we're in stores over here. But it's interesting, and that's the one thing Kerrang's got, I think, over a lot of other music publications is that you say the word Kerrang to anyone who's into our music. Doesn't matter where they're from, they'll know what that means, and they'll have a very clear idea of whether it's when the magazine they bought or the TV channel or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the best business card you can have is just your brand name.
With sort of there's a lot of bands that quite recently have got big again or have come back or are hitting new heights, like Sleep Token.
Sure.
Obviously has exploded, like Ghost, the biggest they've ever been. That resurgence in rock, does that help Kerrang? And do you get like lifted up when the bands and the general scene?
Yeah, it does in a way. I mean, in terms of like you do something with Sleep Token, you do something with Ghost or whatever. Clearly, that is going to be more popular than other artists that we cover. But I think there's also an element of when because it is mad just how huge and popular the scene is now. Like you mentioned Ghost and Sleep Token, but you look at Spirit Box, you look at Bad Omens, you look at Turnstile, you look at Not Loose, like all these things, and then Deftones being huge now, Limp Bizkit being huge now, Korn being bigger than they've ever been. It's all these things working in tandem that just make our scene just feel way bigger, way more exciting, way more accessible than it's ever been. And that is super exciting for someone like me as the editor because it gives us way more bands to write about and way more reasons to write about things. But also, and it just feels like such a positive connection with the music. But at the same time, there is also an element of we told you so. Like when rock music wasn't cool, we were, like when it wasn't as big as it is now, we were still there writing about it. We didn't go, we've still been championing this music for forever. And, we had Turnstile on the cover years ago. We had Not Loose on the cover years ago. We did Spirit Box's first ever cover, and all this. And it's we were there on the ground floor, and that's something Kerrang's always done. And now it feels like not the rest of the world's catching up, but it's just like we're that's why we're the authority on a lot of things, is because again it's about having that ear to the ground and knowing what people are actually into.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is super exciting just where we are right now. Like Reading this past weekend, the crowd Limp Bizkit got was so big, and obviously Bringley headlining it for the second time is huge. It's just, which is a few years ago, that wouldn't have happened at a festival like Reading. And you got download booking sleep token and things like that. It's all these things are all just making our scene feel so much more alive than ever.
One of the other big notable things that you've been involved with or done is the Enter Shikari biography.
Yes.
How did that come about, and what was the decision to actually write a book rather than articles?
I've been a fan of Shikari for, well, as long as I've been around. But I remember discovering them on MySpace way back when, with Sorry Not a Winner. But basically, as a Shikari fan, I remember seeing that it was 2021. I reached out to their manager Ian, who I know quite well. You should get him on here. Actually, he'll have some stories for you.
I'd love to have it in.
And saying like, next year's the 15th anniversary of Take to the Skies. It'd be amazing to do a story so far book, biography type thing. And I knew Ralph fairly well, having interviewed him a bunch of times over the years. And from what I understand, Ian pitched it to the band and as an idea, and they were like, and obviously they were into it. And then that was sort of it. Suddenly it was just like, I got hooked up with Faber Music, their publishers, again through Ian, and it was sort of, suddenly it became very real very quickly that I'd sort of signed myself up for a massive, massive job.
What was the process then from sort of like start to finish of getting everything together?
A lot of interviews. I mean, I did, well, I guess firstly, I read both of Rao's books to begin with. And then, after having, you sort of, weirdly, because as a fan, you sort of know the narrative you want to tell. But you knew that, but there's more to the band than you think there is. And so it was just a lot of interviews. I think I did, all in all, I think over 70 hours of interviews for the book. And that's with each band member multiple times. Their management, their various label teams and stuff like that, promoters, producers, people they've worked with along the way, just to sort of get that definitive story. And thankfully, it was because it was lockdown, COVID time. The band weren't on tour, so it was sort of, it was quite easy, sort of weekly Zoom calls with everyone to sort of make it happen. Now I think it would be a much, much harder job, or I'd approach it very, just wouldn't be able to get the amount of material as I did. But yeah, I'm someone who does his own transcribing as well, rather than getting it automated. So it's so many hours of just writing and listening. But yeah, it's like super, super proud of it.
Was the story you ended up telling different to one that you thought you were going to?
Not necessarily, in terms of it being, how you say, having followed them for so long, you sort of knew where the ups and downs were career-wise. But what did come through more so than I thought it was going to, maybe, was that the story of the band is like one arc, but there's sort of like a mental health narrative to it as well, in terms of, well, Rao's story is like quite well documented in terms of what happened with the Spark and things, but then also talking to Rob and Rory and where they're at with it. It really sort of, there's a through line in terms of being like four friends supporting each other through everything, and why that is just so important in terms of what they do and what they stand for.
How did you decide how you were going to market it and how it was going to be released? And
well, to be fair, I was quite hands off in that. That was very much the publisher sort of saying like,
right,
here's what we're going to do. But I did really enjoy it, because I mean, we did 3 events at rough trades around the country. I think it was London, Bristol, and Nottingham, I think, which was like so it's like a live Q&A. It was like Sophie Kay interviewing me and the band, and there was like a signing session after each one, which was something I'd never done before, which was quite surreal. It was getting people, people wanted my signature in there, but obviously more so they wanted the band's signature in the book, not just mine. But yeah, there were some people getting me to sign their records, and I was like, I'm not in the back. Like, this will drastically reduce the value of this record if I sign this. But yeah, so that was really cool. But
did it feel like your version of releasing a record? Like you got to be on the other side?
It's the one thing I've ever done that's remotely like that. Yeah. So yes, it was weird. Like, I don't know whether. Thankfully, it's not like Spotify where you get like real time, updates. It's just like how many people have read it now? But yeah, I remember on release, I was sort of like on release day, I was just like, this is mad that it's fine, because it was like a year and a half, I think, from starting it to it being out. It was just like such a celebratory moment, really. Just sort of finally see it in print.
How does it work with the publisher? Do they pay in advance and then a royalty, or?
We get in advance. Basically, we get half of it on commission and the other half when you hand it in, basically. And then the royalties come in once you've paid your advance off. So yeah, basically you get, once you've worked through however much that is, and in terms of book sales, then you get more money.
Where is it available?
Well, it's in all good bookshops. Rough Trade, Amazon. I think it's Enter Shikari store as well, still sells it.
Is there an audiobook version?
There isn't an audiobook version.
Are you going to record one?
No, only because I thought because then I'd have to read their quotes and that would just be really weird. And it's just like, can we get them to come back and say, can you say all your quotes again, please, into a microphone nicely? So sadly, there's not an audiobook version, but I highly recommend the hardcover version that's out there.
Are there any other bands that you'd be interested in doing that for? Is it something that you want to go back to?
People did say to me, like, when I finished it, like, oh, you're going to do another one? And my instinctive reaction was like, I just don't have the time, because like 3 months into doing the book, I got the editor's job, and suddenly I had way less free time than I thought imaginable. So, but saying that, if Slipknot suddenly decided they needed a biographer, then I am here, because they've been my favorite band since I was like 11, and I don't think the definitive story of them exists in book form. So yeah, if you're watching, guys, then I'm here for it.
I guess there's a generalization for your future. Do you see it more in magazines, or one day being more of the author?
I mean, realistically, there's not a lot of money in books. I mean, there is if you're famous, but to make a living, I think, off band biographies, you probably need to write way more than I was able, in terms of like churning out way more books.
Did the band have a lot of say in sort of approving things or telling you to change things, or was it?
No, they were actually quite sort of hands off in that regard. It was, they obviously read it before it was published, but there was never any instance of, can we take that out? Can we do this?
With the Kerrang in Conversation podcast, how did that come about?
It's a weird one, really. It's the opportunity just sort of presented itself. Really, like someone who we worked with, again, knew someone else who had, it was just basically like, oh, we can use this studio for recording podcasts in. Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I was sort of like, thought about it, but not, because really it's sort of another thing to do. But as someone who listens to podcasts, especially interview podcasts, a lot, it was just like, there isn't a regular podcast that sort of covers what Kerrang cover in terms of interviews, really. Especially that's all artist led. And so yeah, we just thought we'd give it a go, really. But I'm really, really proud of what we were able to, but people we've got on. I mean, like, we had Jerry Cantrell on there, we had Derek from Sum 41 on there, we had Rise Against with Ellis Dunes, we had Paris, some like really, really, like, we had Bill Bailey came on for the Christmas special. It's like, it's just an exciting way of doing things as well, as I'm sure you know from doing this. It's long form conversations where you're allowed to sort of let meander and wander where things go, rather than having to sort of chop and change and sort of get the juicy bits out of it. You can, sometimes when you're wandering around listening to a podcast, you do just sort of, your own mind wanders. So someone just sort of talking at you for a bit is sort of what you want.
Were there any like goals with it, or was it just like we're gonna have a go, see what happens?
Yeah, basically that's pretty much it. I mean, like where we're at in terms of the people that own Kerrang, like Wasted Talent is like an independent publisher really, and there's very much an ethos of just try stuff. Does it work? Yeah, if it works, then do it. If it doesn't work, don't do it again, kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, just don't lose money. That is basically the rule.
How does it make money? Because from our experience, it's quite hard on a podcast.
I mean, we got sponsors, I guess was it. Because yeah, I'm sure actual advertising in podcasts is hard. Like, I don't know how you monetize this, for example. What is your...
Not very much.
Not very well. Okay.
We at this point, like, we just lose money on every single episode.
Oh, that's
that's a sad answer.
Yeah, that's a sad answer. Yeah.
No, we it's monetized on YouTube.
Yeah.
But really, like, we didn't go into it thinking we were gonna like make money quick. It was more of for me personally, it was a great opportunity to have longer conversations with people that are interested. It's a networking thing, and you get to meet people. And also, like, I am the least eloquent person. Like, right. I mumble and struggle to make conversation and can't do small talk. So for me, it was like a massive learning experience, being like, I'm actually going to sit and try and have a conversation with full sentences, because like it's a skill in life that's useful. Yeah. So that was the sort of thing really. And it being like, there's a lot of people in the music industry where I know them and I've worked with them, but we have meetings that last 25 minutes and we talk about the thing that we're there to talk about.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's so much more that you could actually sit down, and there's so many stories that you could share, and that just seemed like an interesting thing. And it was like, well, we'll just see where it goes from that. And then Joe, who booked you, is the guy that actually spearheads and does all the work. And for him, it was, again, just an exciting thing to sort of get behind.
Well, that's similar with the Kerrang one. It was just like, it's something we're not doing, give it a go. It's just sort of, and that's basically it. Again, comes back to saying yes to everything, but it's just try stuff. We all work in a creative industry. If you're not going to be creative in your day-to-day, then you're doing it wrong.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, from my perspective with it, it's just sort of like, do shit and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. What's the worst that can happen?
Is there anything else that Kerrang are doing or looking at that you think this is sort of the future of media, and I'm not going
to give my tips and tricks away to the competition. One thing I really want to do more of, and we are doing more of, is events. Just because I think, especially since, like, going back to COVID, like, everyone was so starved of doing stuff for so long that everyone just wants a good night out. And when we got, and that doesn't mean going and getting battered in the pub or whatever. It's just doing something you've not done before, doing something exciting. And we've done some really cool events like that. We've done like pop-up shops with Black Belt Brides, and we did a live Q&A thing with Palais Royale. I'm doing a thing with I'm hosting like a Q&A with Dinosaur Pile Up next month, and we've done like playback sessions for Bury Tomorrow and Within Temptation and stuff like that. And it's being able to give people that opportunity just to meet their favorite bands, and it being Kerrang to be the people to facilitate that is what makes me excited. It's not just, you were in a room with a band. It's, you can meet them, you can meet your favorite band, you can get something signed, you can do all this stuff, and we're the ones that can make it happen for you. Because fans want to get up close with their favorite people. If we're the ones that can make that happen, then that's awesome.
Are there any moments that you'd go back to if you could just relive that again? I know you mentioned
the first time I met Slipknot was like so just like, I was just internally screaming, sort of thing, because it was a video thing we were doing. And so Corey turned up with mask on, with boiler suit on. Clown turned up with mask on, boiler suit on, with a baseball bat. And it was just, and I was just there, just like, this this is incredible. I'm so excited right now. And just even though it was only like a 10-minute like video interview thing, I got to meet them and like get a photo and stuff afterwards. It's like, but it's like that was just, yeah. Like at that point, I was like, I've peaked. It's never getting any better than this. Obviously, we're now 11 years later, but which I think what else stands out really is sort of things I'd go back and do. I mean, all because it is just realistically, it's the most fun job in the world. Like when I grew up buying Kerrang, it was and thinking, I'd want to do this for a job. You know, it's on paper, your job is to travel the world and hang out with rock stars. And you sort of like, obviously there's a lot more admin to it than that, but at the same time, these opportunities do present themselves where you do get to.
What is the biggest sort of, what's the word? Misconception that people have around that?
I don't know really, because I don't really want to downplay how awesome the job is. You know, I think there are days where you're chained to your desk because you've ignored your inbox for forever. You know, the less glamorous side of it is, I get 150 emails a day and I have to sift through that. You know, that's not cool. But at the same time, you do say you get to put on these amazing events. You get to go to festivals. You get to go to different countries. You get to meet artists that mean so much to you. Like meeting Metallica for the first time, it's just like, teenage you is like crying at this, and you just sort of. It's important not to take that for granted as well, I think, amongst it all. But yeah, I think in terms of like misconception, I don't really know. I mean, what do you think? What do you think like the job is? And I'll tell you whether that's right or not.
Well, I guess from the outside, it just looks not so much being the editor, but working in it. It just looks like that you are at gigs surrounded by bands and writing cool shit.
Yeah, sort of. That is sort of it, really. I mean, yeah, it's sort of it. Yeah,
it's nice that it is that cool.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, that's the thing. Like the job, it isn't a 9 to 5, I guess, because you finish your day and then go, all right, now what? Who's in? What gigs are on? Who's got an album listening session? Who's got? What management company or PR company is having a party? What's going on? It is again going back to this being your passion and you being willing to give up every hour of the day for it. This could be a 24/7 job for someone if you wanted it to be. Thankfully, I'm not. I can't do that anymore. But it is just. Yes, it's the best. Yeah.
What advice then would you give to somebody that wanted to be in journalism or one day replace you?
I mean, there's a few things. I've said it a few times in this chat. Like, say yes to stuff is the biggest thing. Is like any opportunity that's presented to you. That's why I did this. Like, part of me was thinking, I don't want to do this. Like, no disrespect to you, but I'm always just like, I'm much more comfortable doing the interview than being interviewed.
Yeah,
kind of thing. But I was like, this could be really fun, and hang out with the lovely UPRAWR people. But also, it's just saying yes to if you're looking to get into writing, is anything you see any job that gets thrown your way, just take it, because even if it's not the most glamorous thing, it could lead to something else. You could meet someone that would give you a better opportunity, or it would mean, or you get on really well with the band, and then if that could lead to something or whatever. But I guess the other thing is write loads. Like I spent a long time writing for free. Basically before I got the front job, all my music stuff was unpaid, just for various. But because I just wanted to build up that portfolio and build up that network, and also just get good. But I say get good. If I look back and read any of that now, I'm sure it'll be the worst, tripe I've ever seen. But you need to develop your voice. You need to develop what you're into. You need to develop what gets you excited as well. Like, rather than just churning out something because you feel like you have to. It's like write about what excites you, but also read. Like, there's a lot of stuff being written out there, and a lot of amazing writers out there. And I think it's important for everyone to read everyone. Like, to find out, just to read what interviews with bands and what you're interested in and stuff, but also see what the conversation is, what's being said, but also you might see a quirk in a writer that you go, oh, I quite like how they've done that phrasing, how they've done that. I'll incorporate that into my writing style. It becomes something else, and it's not. And don't think you're too good for something as well. Like you're not. That's some of the best writers we have at Kerrang. They don't turn their nose up at a 200-word album review or something. It's not saying, oh, I'm only doing a cover feature. I'm like, no, it's you want to be a music journalist, then you write about all of it. What else can I say? That might be it. Read, write, and say yes to stuff, and just be excited as well. I mean, it's really easy to get jaded in this, but just remember, like, this is the best job in the world, and treat it, and so just enjoy it. Realistically, like it's your job to talk to your favorite bands and write about your favorite music. So
I guess that passion and that excitement really comes across, and people can see when it's genuine.
Yeah, exactly. And same with music, really. I mean, like, authenticity is key in music. Everyone can see when a band's faking it. They can see when a writer couldn't care less as well.
Yeah. Just before we finish that, what was the biggest challenge in your career?
And the biggest challenge, like Kerrang, maybe not Kerrang, and maybe not even music journalism, but just sort of wider online journalism, is avoiding that race to the bottom and just doing just doing content for the sake of it, and doing stuff that will drive clicks, and just doing and things like that, because no one wins that way. And I think I'm really proud of the fact that Kerrang does do long form journalism. Like we do like really long form articles. Like we cover bands that matter in a way that matters, and that's always been what I'm really proud of with Kerrang, because we don't just do just a lazy list feature, or we don't just write about this. I'm not spending my day writing about a viral video or whatever. It's we're the authoritative voice in rock music, and we need to sort of maintain that. When we're all replaced by machines, basically, I don't want to look back on my time doing music journalism as that time I wrote about a meme, or that time I managed to grind an extra couple of thousand clicks because out of whatever. I want to look back on pieces I'm really proud of. Like I say, a cover story I did, or a really interesting in-depth interview I did with an artist that means something to me. I want readers to feel that same passion. I don't want them to feel that we're just doing clickbait, or we're just a fucking farm for engagement. We've been doing this. Kerrang's been going for nearly 45 years, and we've always been the best at what we do. And I worry, not for us, because I think we've got a very good radar at knowing what we should and shouldn't do. But it is just, like I say, the biggest challenge I think in digital journalism in general is just avoiding that trap of growth for the sake of it. It's just meaningless. It doesn't mean anything.
I guess when you've got people that are that passionate about the actual scene and the music and the bands that they're talking about, that's why Kerrang is able to stay consistent.
Yeah, completely. That's the thing. Like everyone on the team gives a shit. That's the thing. Like everyone cares. Everyone wants Kerrang to be the best. Everyone knows the music we write about is the best, and it's about not losing sight of that. It's about giving people the best possible access to their favorite bands. It's not about meaningless content, hashtag content. Like it's not why any of us got into this, and it's not what I want to do with my time as the editor.
Is there anything that you'd like to mention or promote before we finish?
Buy the Enter Shikari book, Standing Like Statues, by Luke Morton.
I think that's pretty much everything for today. Thank you very much for coming on and answering the questions. It's been awesome having you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
For everyone that's listened, thank you. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to watch us, we're on YouTube. We'll catch you next time.